Before we begin, I want you to stop for a moment and ask yourself a question. What if, at this very moment, someone you cannot stop thinking about has just made a life-changing decision about you? What if the silence you have been experiencing is not the absence of movement, but the sign of something powerful unfolding behind the scenes? Most people assume that the biggest changes in life arrive with obvious signs and dramatic announcements, but the truth is far more mysterious. The most important decisions are often made in complete silence. They happen deep within the human psyche, where fears battle desires, where doubts confront truths, and where the soul finally chooses a direction it can no longer avoid. Right now, there may be a shift taking place that you cannot see, a hidden realization, an emotional breakthrough, a moment of clarity so powerful that it changes the course of two lives forever. The person connected to you may have reached a point where denial is no longer possible, where uncertainty has lost its grip, and where a choice has emerged from the deepest part of their being. And once such a choice is made, everything begins to change. So, pay close attention, because what you are about to hear may explain why nothing will ever be the same again. A deep inner decision is unlike the choices people make every day. It is not the result of a fleeting emotion, a temporary desire, or a moment of excitement. It is born in the hidden chambers of the psyche, where experiences, emotions, memories, fears, and desires slowly interact over time. Long before a person becomes consciously aware of such a decision, something is already changing within them. The unconscious mind begins gathering fragments of truth, connecting patterns, and revealing realities that were previously ignored or misunderstood. What appears to others as a sudden realization is often the final stage of a process that has been developing beneath the surface for months or even years. When it comes to a soulmate connection, this inner decision is especially powerful because it emerges from a place deeper than logic alone. A person may spend a long time attempting to explain away their feelings. They may tell themselves that the connection is impractical, inconvenient, or impossible. They may focus on circumstances, distance, timing, or past disappointments. Yet, despite all these rational arguments, the emotional truth remains alive beneath the surface. The more they try to suppress it, the more persistent it becomes. Eventually, the tension between what they consciously believe and what they unconsciously feel becomes impossible to ignore. This is where transformation begins. The individual starts noticing signs they previously overlooked. They begin reflecting on moments that once seemed insignificant. Conversations, memories, emotions, and encounters acquire new meaning. The connection that was once pushed aside starts demanding attention. Instead of running from their feelings, they gradually begin confronting them. This confrontation is not always comfortable. In fact, it often requires a person to face their greatest fears: fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of change, and fear of losing control can all rise to the surface during this process. However, every fear that emerges also presents an opportunity for growth. As the individual examines these fears, they begin recognizing which beliefs are serving them and which beliefs are limiting them. Old emotional defenses start weakening. Protective walls that once felt necessary begin to appear more like obstacles than safeguards. The person realizes that avoiding the truth has not brought peace. It has only prolonged inner conflict. This realization creates the conditions for a profound internal shift. The deep inner decision occurs when the soul becomes stronger than the resistance. At this point, the person no longer needs constant proof or reassurance. They stop arguing with themselves. They stop searching for reasons to deny what they feel. Instead, they reach a state of acceptance. This acceptance does not mean every question has been answered or every obstacle has disappeared. It simply means they have acknowledged a truth that can no longer be denied. The struggle between the heart and the mind begins to dissolve, and a new sense of clarity emerges. What makes this decision so significant is that it changes the direction of a person's energy. Their thoughts, emotions, and intentions start moving toward alignment rather than contradiction. Even if outward actions take time to appear, the internal foundation has already shifted. The person is no longer standing at a crossroads, wondering which path to choose. Deep within themselves, the choice has already been made, and from that moment forward, their journey begins unfolding in an entirely different way. The end of inner conflict is one of the most significant psychological shifts a person can experience. For a long time, an individual may feel as though they are being pulled in opposite directions by competing thoughts, emotions, and desires. One part of them longs to move forward, embrace their feelings, and accept what their heart already knows. Another part resists, creating doubts, fears, and endless questions. This internal struggle can continue for months or even years, quietly consuming emotional energy and creating a sense of restlessness that is difficult to explain. In a soulmate connection, this conflict often becomes especially intense because the emotions involved tend to reach deeper layers of the psyche. Such a connection has a way of bringing hidden fears, unresolved wounds, and unconscious patterns to the surface. A person may genuinely feel drawn towards someone while simultaneously feeling afraid of what that attraction could mean. They may desire closeness but fear vulnerability. They may dream about a future together while convincing themselves that such a future is unrealistic. These opposing forces create a psychological tug-of-war that leaves them feeling stuck between action and hesitation. The mind often plays a central role in maintaining this conflict. It constantly seeks certainty, control, and protection from potential pain. Whenever strong emotions arise, the mind begins generating explanations and objections. It analyzes every detail, questions every feeling, and searches for reasons why those emotions should be ignored. This process can create an endless cycle of overthinking. The person repeatedly revisits the same questions, hoping to find an answer that will finally bring peace. Yet, the more they analyze, the more confused they often become. Meanwhile, the deeper self continues, sending signals that something important requires attention. Certain thoughts return repeatedly. Particular memories remain vivid despite the passage of time. Emotional reactions seem stronger than logic can justify. The connection refuses to disappear, no matter how many attempts are made to dismiss it. These recurring experiences gradually weaken the illusion that the conflict can be solved through avoidance. The person begins realizing that the struggle itself is the source of their discomfort. As awareness grows, an important shift starts occurring. Instead of fighting their emotions, they begin observing them. Instead of automatically rejecting their feelings, they become curious about them. This change in perspective allows hidden truths to emerge. They start recognizing that many of their fears are not based on present reality, but on past experiences, old disappointments, or inherited beliefs about love and relationships. The emotional barriers that once seemed permanent begin revealing themselves as protective mechanisms rather than objective truths. With this realization comes a gradual release of tension. The person no longer feels compelled to choose between their heart and their mind, because they begin understanding that both are attempting to guide them in different ways. The heart seeks authenticity and connection, while the mind seeks safety and stability. When these two forces stop competing and start working together, a profound sense of inner harmony develops. Thoughts become clearer, emotions become easier to understand, decisions no longer feel impossible. The end of inner conflict does not happen because every challenge disappears. It happens because the individual stops resisting their own truth. They accept what they feel without constantly judging or questioning it. The energy once spent on doubt, fear, and emotional resistance becomes available for growth, understanding, and forward movement. What was once confusion transforms into clarity, and what was once a battlefield within the psyche becomes a place of greater balance, awareness, and emotional peace. The power of the unconscious mind is one of the most mysterious and influential forces within human experience. While people often believe they are guided primarily by conscious thoughts and deliberate decisions, a vast portion of their emotional life operates beneath the surface of awareness. Hidden memories, unexpressed desires, unresolved emotions, forgotten experiences, and deeply rooted beliefs continue shaping perceptions and behavior long after they have faded from conscious attention. The unconscious mind functions like an invisible current beneath the ocean, quietly influencing the direction of thoughts, feelings, and choices without constantly revealing its presence. In matters of deep emotional connection, the influence of the unconscious becomes especially significant. A soulmate connection often reaches layers of the psyche that ordinary relationships never touch. It activates emotional patterns, awakens dormant aspects of the personality, and brings hidden truths closer to the surface. A person may not fully understand why they feel such a strong pull towards someone, yet the unconscious mind recognizes meanings and associations that the conscious mind has not yet identified. This creates a powerful inner dynamic in which emotions appear before logical explanations can be found. The unconscious communicates in subtle ways. Rather than speaking through direct statements, it expresses itself through recurring thoughts, vivid dreams, emotional reactions, intuition, symbolic experiences, and persistent feelings that refuse to disappear. A person may repeatedly think about someone despite attempting to focus elsewhere. Certain memories may unexpectedly return with unusual intensity. Dreams may become more frequent or emotionally charged. Situations and symbols connected to a particular person may seem to appear repeatedly throughout daily life. These experiences often represent the unconscious attempting to bring important information into conscious awareness. Many people initially resist these messages because they challenge existing beliefs or comfortable assumptions. The conscious mind tends to prefer certainty, predictability, and control. It seeks clear explanations and practical evidence. The unconscious, however, is concerned with deeper psychological truths. It is less interested in appearances and more interested in authenticity. When the unconscious recognizes something meaningful, it continues presenting signals until they receive attention. The more a person ignores these signals, the more persistent they often become. This persistence is not accidental. The unconscious seeks psychological balance and wholeness. Whenever important emotions are suppressed, they do not disappear. Instead, they remain active beneath awareness, influencing behavior in indirect ways. A person may find themselves comparing others to someone they cannot forget. They may feel dissatisfied with situations that once seemed acceptable. They may experience emotional reactions that appear disproportionate to present circumstances. These responses often indicate that deeper material is attempting to emerge into consciousness. As this process unfolds, hidden fears also begin surfacing. The unconscious does not reveal only desires and hopes. It also exposes insecurities, vulnerabilities, and unresolved wounds. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of intimacy, and fear of change may all become more visible. Although this can feel uncomfortable, it serves an important psychological purpose. The unconscious presents these fears because they must be acknowledged before genuine growth can occur. What remains hidden continues exerting influence, while what becomes conscious can be understood and transformed. Over time, the unconscious mind gradually reshapes a person's perception of themselves and their connection. Insights begin appearing with greater clarity. Emotional truths that once seemed confusing become easier to recognize. Internal contradictions start dissolving as awareness expands. The individual becomes less dependent on external validation because they begin trusting what they have discovered within themselves. The unconscious has fulfilled its role by bringing hidden realities into the light of your awareness, allowing deeper understanding, emotional integration, and a more authentic relationship with both themselves and the connection they can no longer ignore. A shift in destiny does not usually arrive as a dramatic event that instantly changes everything. More often, it begins as a subtle movement within the depths of the psyche, where old patterns start losing their influence and new possibilities begin taking shape. Most people imagine destiny as something fixed, predetermined, and completely outside their control. Yet destiny is often experienced through a series of choices, realizations, and inner transformations that gradually alter the direction of a person's life. When a soulmate connection becomes part of this process, the shift can feel even more profound, because it touches the deepest layers of identity, purpose, and emotional growth. There are periods in life when a person follows a path that feels familiar and predictable. Their routines, beliefs, and expectations create a sense of stability. Even if they are not completely fulfilled, they understand the structure of their world. Then, something unexpected enters their experience and begins challenging that structure. A connection emerges that cannot easily be explained away. Thoughts become more intense. Emotions become more meaningful. Questions arise that had never been considered before. What once seemed certain no longer feels as solid as it did. At first, a person may resist this disruption. Human beings naturally seek comfort in what they already know. Change often requires leaving behind old assumptions and stepping into uncertainty. The mind may attempt to preserve the existing path by creating doubts, distractions, or rational explanations. Yet, despite these efforts, the connection continues exerting its influence. It becomes increasingly difficult to return to previous ways of thinking because something fundamental has already shifted within. This is where the concept of a shift in destiny begins to reveal itself. The individual is no longer being guided solely by habits, expectations, or external pressures. Instead, they start responding to a deeper inner calling. Their priorities begin changing. Things that once seemed important lose some of their significance, while matters connected to emotional truth and personal growth become increasingly meaningful. The direction of their life starts adjusting in response to this new awareness. A soulmate connection often acts as a catalyst for this transformation because it mirrors hidden aspects of the self. It exposes strengths that were never fully developed and weaknesses that were never fully acknowledged. It encourages self-examination and challenges the individual to become more conscious of their choices. Through this process, the person begins recognizing that their future is not simply a continuation of their past. New possibilities emerge that were previously invisible because they were viewing life through an outdated perspective. As awareness expands, opportunities for change appear in unexpected ways. New conversations take place, different decisions are made, emotional barriers begin dissolving. Circumstances that once seemed permanent start shifting. The individual may notice meaningful coincidences, recurring themes, or situations that appear to guide them toward a particular direction. Whether these experiences are viewed as psychological patterns, synchronicities, or signs of deeper meaning, they contribute to a growing sense that life is moving toward a new chapter. The shift becomes especially powerful because it affects not only external circumstances, but also the person's relationship with themselves. They begin understanding their desires more clearly. They become more honest about their emotions. They stop living solely according to fear or social expectations and start paying attention to what genuinely resonates with their inner truth. This alignment creates momentum. Decisions become less driven by confusion and more guided by authenticity. As this process continues, the old path gradually loses its hold. The person can remember who they used to be, but they can no longer fully return to that version of themselves. Their perspective has changed, their awareness has deepened, and their understanding of the connection has evolved. The shift in destiny is not merely about reaching a specific outcome. It is about becoming the person capable of walking a different path, one shaped by greater consciousness, emotional honesty, and a growing willingness to follow the direction revealed by the deeper currents of the soul. Transformation through acceptance is one of the most profound experiences a person can undergo when confronting the realities they have been avoiding. Many people believe transformation occurs through force, struggle, or constant effort. While effort certainly plays a role in personal growth, true transformation often begins when the person stops fighting what they already know deep within. Acceptance is not surrendering to weakness, nor is it giving up control. It is the willingness to acknowledge a truth exactly as it exists, without attempting to deny, suppress, or distort it. In the context of a soulmate connection, acceptance becomes especially important, because such connections often awaken emotions that are difficult to understand. A person may spend a long period resisting what they feel. They may convince themselves that the connection is insignificant, temporary, or merely the result of imagination. They may focus on practical obstacles, timing issues, or past disappointments in an effort to protect themselves from uncertainty. Yet despite these efforts, the emotional reality remains present beneath the surface. The more a person resists a genuine feeling, the more energy is required to maintain that resistance. This creates inner tension. Thoughts become repetitive. Emotions become confusing. The individual may feel trapped between what they experience internally and what they believe they should experience. Over time, this conflict